Little computer is
All right. Good evening, everyone. Chair would like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington. It is Tuesday, August 3, 2021, and it is 7:06 p.m. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
President Richardson,
Here.
Trustee Burke,
Here.
Trustee Hayes,
Here.
Trustee Perkins, here. Trustee Scheller,
Here.
Trustee Thompson,
Here.
Trustee Van Ryn.
Here. I would like our honored guest, Tom Gilder, to come up to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand?
Veterans, let's see. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4 this evening is approval of the minutes. 4A is the special committee of the whole minutes from July 6th, and 4B is minutes of the regular Board of Trustees meeting on the same day. Are there questions, edits, or comments for the clerk? There being none, the chair would like a motion to approve in block agenda items 4A and B, meetings of the special committee of the whole and meetings of the regular Board of Trustees, July 6, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved by Scheller, second by Thompson. Thank you both, gentlemen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair asks unanimous consent that the record remain open for a period of 5 business days for any necessary technical conforming amendments without objections. Agenda item 5 is President's remarks. I am going to yield under 5A to my colleague and dear friend, Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity to read this proclamation honoring Thomas G. Gilder.
And Jim, just to let people know this, the process here is you're going to read the proclamation, and then we'll have discussion, each trustee having an opportunity to comment, and then I will call the question, and you will move the question, or I'll move the question, you'll move the question as the primary sponsor, and one of your colleagues can move it as the secondary sponsor, and then afterwards we'll invite the honoree to come forward with his wife.
Thank you, Mr. President. A proclamation honoring Thomas G. Gilder. Whereas Tom Gilder has served as president of the Veterans of Lake Barrington Shores since 2016 and has provided the veterans of LBS with critical assistance at a variety of village and organization events. And whereas Tom Gilder has also served with distinction for many years as a Lake Barrington Shores Insurance Commissioner, and whereas Tom Gilder and his family have been active members of the community and have given of themselves in a number of school and community activities, including his key leadership in leading the effort that resulted in the Village of Lake Barrington being awarded the 2019 Illinois Hometown Governor's Award, and whereas Tom Gilder has demonstrated a sophisticated, disciplined, and consensus-oriented approach to his work on behalf of the Village of Lake Barrington, the Lake Barrington Shores community, the Veterans of Lake Barrington Shores, and the Lake Barrington Shores Insurance Commission in a manner that consistently reflected his first-rate intellect and his successful corporate experience. And whereas the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington desire to acknowledge the time and expertise so generously given by Tom Gilder, and to thank him for his outstanding public service to the community and all its residents, past, present, and future. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington, Lake County, Illinois, that the Village of Lake Barrington express our deep appreciation to Thomas G. Gilder for his dedicated and exemplary service to the community.
Thank you. We'll first applaud. It is our custom here to recognize each trustee for comments. I'll begin on my right with Trustee Hayes.
Well, Tom, I've known you a short while here. I know it takes a family, so I don't know if you can introduce your family that's here. Martha? I couldn't. Sue. Sue. Well, Sue, thank you, because I know it takes a team to get it done, and I didn't know, having been involved in a few things with you with Lake Barrington Shores Veterans Association, all the time that you have to put in to make all those events happen is not unseen by me for sure. And very proud that you have built an organization in our community that recognizes veterans first of all, but then also watching the organization give back to the very community in which you come from. So to both of you, thanks for your service, and I'm sure you're looking forward to your time with your grandchildren in upstate New York. So it's an honor to be here with you tonight, and I'm glad we took the time to recognize you. So thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Trustee Hayes. Trustee Perkins.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for all that you've done. I know over the past few years since I've been a trustee, all of you have put together some really fine events, and so we really thank you and wish you the best of luck. Have fun with the kids. Good luck.
Thank you, Trustee Shelley.
Mr. and Mrs. Gilder, I've known you for 15 years or more. I sold you your wonderful place at 926 Oak Hill Road all those many years ago. What has been failed to include in this proclamation is that Tom has also served on the Condo 7 board a number of years. He's been a vital part of our board, our 5-member board, and got involved in insurance, headed up the insurance commission. It's done an awful lot for the community, and taking over, John Betzel was the original organizer of the veterans of LBS, and Tom took over upon his unfortunate passing, and has done an outstanding job. I think the veterans of LBS from day one have done so very, very much to bond Lake Barrington Shores with this entire village by just doing everything they can to make everyone feel part of the family. And I think that's in addition to the outstanding job that the veterans do within our community. I think that's one of the things that I am especially proud that you have done. And that is, up to the forming of the veterans, it was kind of a little bit of a we versus them. And now it's just, it's one big family, and I appreciate everything that you, your successor, Mr. Bishop, will be bringing, and Trustee Thompson, and members of an organization. I got to give you one example. We had a big windstorm. Was it last week or the week before? The veterans of LBS have been selling flags for $69. They will put it up. It's a high quality flag. They'll install it, they'll do everything. And I've had one, I think from the first time we started promoting it. That windstorm, I woke up that morning, my flag was not only ripped, it was down, it had been ripped off the fence that I had down. And I called, and by that afternoon I had a brand new flag proudly displayed in front of her, and we hope more people in LBS and the entire community would take advantage. It's a beautiful flag, but I think it exemplifies another aspect of what the veterans of LBS do. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, helping park cars, doing everything. The men with the yellow or the red vests do an awful lot for our community, and we appreciate what you do. Wish you obviously the very, very best with your grandkids out in New York. But you will be very, very much missed, both of you. Both of you. The pickleballers of LBS are going to miss you. But Tom, everything you've done for insurance and for our board and for the community, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Trustee Burke.
Tom, you represent everything good about what it means to be a resident of a community. And community can be as small as your immediate neighborhood. It can be Lake Barrington Shores, it can be Lake Barrington itself, but at every level, you've been someone who truly believes in giving back to the community, and that's what makes communities like ours work. And proud to know you, proud to be in this community with you, and the influence, people like yourself, it's not only what you contribute, but you inspire other people to do the same. So I'm sure that while we will miss you, and New York will be the beneficiary, as will your kids and grandchildren, we're certain you've left a legacy here where you've inspired other people to continue. That's the most important thing about what you've really done, is inspired other people to give to the community as well. And so for that in particular, I thank you. And I have to say, nobody parks a car like Tom Gilbert. You know, and we'll certainly miss you doing that as well. So I wish you all the very best.
Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tom, the first thing I'll say is that I'm going to miss your bleeding on my shorelines articles that I write. But there isn't much more to say after all that's been said, what will be said. Except I want to thank you for all you've done and the very best you and Sue have done for the veterans and for Lake Barrington Shores and the village. And at this, I think is going to be just another terrific chapter in your lives. And I just wish you bon voyage.
Thank you. Trustee Van Ryn.
Tom, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, but I feel like I know you from the wonderful things that I've heard everybody say and the true friendships that you have in the room here with you. Thank you for everything you've done for our country and our community, and I wish you the very best.
One of the privileges of being village president is I get to have the last word. And I'm very grateful for your leadership. You've done a remarkable job in so many things. I can remember you and John and me sitting at the brunch cafe, and it had to do with, I think, one of the first years of the Memorial Day event that the veterans did. Your integrity was demonstrated to me because there was an issue with the tax exemption status, and there was a concern that the donations wouldn't be tax deductible. And I admired with deep appreciation you're saying, Kevin, I have to tell you the truth. And I've been in politics for 35 years. I don't hear that phrase very often. And so I was really appreciative of the fact that you demonstrated what an honorable man. And while we all have a little snow on the roof, it tells me something about your mother and your father. Because everyone in this room stands on the shoulders of those who came before us. We've all been privileged to do things our ancestors could have never fathomed. Most of us live far better than our grandparents ever thought possible in our lives. And I do want to recognize the point that was made by Trustee Scheller or Trustee Hayes. It's a team play because every one of us up here is married and every one of us has a spouse who has to support these activities too, because we're going a lot. And what I've learned about the veterans of LBS is AWOL is not in your vocabulary. And so I really admire you, because when Alexis de Tocqueville wrote his great book about America 200 plus years ago, he said the genius of America is its citizens volunteer to solve problems. That de Tocqueville was astonished that we didn't have a ministry or an agency or a department for every single thing, because we had this remarkable ethos in our population about giving back because you were called to duty and honor to do so. I can't think of a person I've met in our community who fits that bill any better than you. And by extension, your beautiful wife.
Thank you.
Because it's absolutely clear that so much of the things that are made great about Lake Barrington are because we have volunteers like those with you tonight and you and Sue. And I just want your home address, because if you think you're getting rid of us, you're dreaming. I gotta send my White House Christmas ornament somewhere, so I have to know for sure where it's gonna be. We hold you in immense regard, and we are extraordinarily grateful for your leadership, and more importantly, your character and your integrity. Something in short supply too often in society today. So with that, I am going to ask that the board now consider the question of approving the resolution, and I will yield to Trustee Thompson to move the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so move the question.
And is there a second?
Second.
Chair will recognize for the record that there was a unanimous second by the balance of the board, and ask that the minutes so reflect. I will now ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Thompson,
Yes.
Trustee Burke,
Yes.
Trustee Hayes,
Yes.
Trustee Perkins,
Yes.
Trustee Schaller,
Yes.
Trustee Van Ryn,
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes. Now, I'd like the board to join me in standing up and applauding Tom and Sue and asking them to come forward. The floor is yours, Tom.
I'm not usually very comfortable with this on, but I understand the situation. I keep telling people I don't need this recognition, but I thank you for it. Okay? And if permission, can I say a few words? Just a bit of trivia before I get started. 55 years ago, August, I had finished my college graduation. I'd done boot camp. I was given a commission in the Army. And my first day of work, I met this wonderful woman. 55 years ago. We went on an adventure after that. But before we could start that, I had some obligations. This is 1966, you know where I'm going. So we decided, let's kind of keep it cool, because that's the right thing to do. Well, I went to do my obligation in the service. I went to Vietnam and realized that, you know, you go over there and there's somebody over there with you in their eyesight. I didn't realize that when I came home, I'd be in the same eyesight. That was different times. But I did it with pride. I was proud of what I had done. I had many experiences that taught me things about people and life going forward. Because it was the right thing to do. Fast forward, we moved here 15 years ago, and as John mentioned, we got involved in things. One of the things that I got involved in, I came in because I was working, retired, and I started to get sort of in the cult. And I'm going to say the cult because John Betzel had a way of teaching you, dragging you, hey, this is a good thing to do. And it was. There are people in that organization that I remember quite vividly. People like Tom Schofield, John Betzel, Sam Gevertz, Lyle Grider, Al Winchester, and all the people that are here in this room that led this organization to be, I heard some comments about it, led this organization to believe that we're not exclusive, not at all. We're inclusive. And the inclusivity included coming to the village, coming to other organizations outside our gated community to show that this is what we need to do. because it was the right thing to do. We're here today because we come to that part in our lives, Sue and I, that we need to make a transition, or a word, and it's the right, it's what we have to do. What is very, very difficult is we have formed strong bonds of friendship here. This is the longest we lived 15 years at any place. But it's been fun, it's been very rewarding, and I thank you for recognizing things that I did happily, Sue has done happily, but it's time, because it's the right thing to do. And I'll finish with whoever wrote Parting the Sweet Sorrow, never, ever had friends like this, because it hurts. Thank you.
Thank you.
President, we have the opportunity to meet the new president of the Veterans of LBS.
I'm happy to yield to you for that purpose.
That would be Mr. Bill Bishop. Unfortunately, he was a Navy veteran. Bill, could you stand up and give us a few words, please? Thank you. Introduce yourself.
He also was one of the first Navy SEALs.
Bill, take your mask off so we can see what you're doing.
I had a long list of things to say tonight, but they've already been said. The last thing I was going to say was that I used to be a Navy SEAL, so I'm about done. But, I was a Navy SEAL, and a little bit of an interesting thing about my first day in the Navy. I was on an airplane going to Officers Candidate School out of Newport, Rhode Island, and President Kennedy was shot. And everybody on the plane was going to the same place I was, Officers Candidate School. And we all got to know each other pretty quickly by saying, what in the hell are we doing going in the military on a day like this?
Yeah.
So it was, of course, a day that changed the world and certainly changed our country. I served 8 years as a Navy SEAL. It was during the Vietnam War era. I did 3 deployments to Vietnam, and it was a great, great experience for me. As far as Tom is concerned, everything has been said, but on behalf of all of us on the executive committee, I would just say that we are, I am filling big shoes, to be sure, and all of my colleagues on the board have promised to help in any way they can, and I want this in the record that they have said that. I will be holding them to that promise. We want to expand the membership here. We have about 125 veterans at LBS. They all know about us, but we want them to be sure that they know we can help them with many things. I have a personal thought about the benefits that the VA offers to us. The VA is a great organization that has taken some great strides forward recently, and I think most veterans don't know what benefits are available to them as veterans, and we want to continue to enlighten them about that. We've got a great support commission, the Lake County Commission for Veterans Assistance, that can be very helpful, and we will use their information and their organization as much as possible to help not only people here at LBS, but in the area too, and all of Lake County whenever we can. That really does wrap it up for me. Again, I thank you all for stealing my thunder here and saying nice things about Tom. And from all the meetings that I've gone to with Tom and the secret meetings that we have, they're really not secret. But I have no stories to tell about Tom that aren't good stories. So thank you all for having me. I look forward to the association with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want you to know that the welcome mat is always on when you come back to visit. And we're again very grateful. Very grateful. And we have a signed version of this proclamation that will be suitably framed and so forth and provided for you. something to hang in the study town in the new house in New York. Chair would like to take 5 minutes for a brief recess. We can kind of catch our breath and then come back and continue on with the rest of our agenda. So we'll stand in recess for the next few minutes. Can we get a shot of all?
Trustee Rackwell.
Always good to see you.
And the funny thing about it was the aftermath is
Where's the love?
the red goes
Okay, the board will please reconvene. Thank you. We can move to agenda item, we have agenda items 5B and C that are somewhat related, but I'm going to yield to Trustee Scheller for purposes of recognizing the representative of the Lake County Sheriff.
Deputy United Nate Kanishi is with us this evening, and obviously he's on duty, and so therefore I appreciate President Richardson allowing you to come forward and bring us up to date on anything that's going on with the Lake County Sheriff's Department at this point in time.
I don't have any new business. Just here to introduce myself today. It's Robert Nakanishi. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about 12 years. Spent many years on the road and many years in gang drug task force, and now I'm here to serve you guys on the afternoon shift.
So you got the afternoon shift?
Yeah, so I'll be here on afternoons at least for the next 6 months until I go to days, and then we'll see where they put me in. Maybe I'll still be down here, I'm not sure. I think Brett's retiring soon, so we might keep this. So, I have nothing new. I'm just here to introduce myself.
They still have been having some rude things, or people are being approached for various things, and identity theft. Is that still ongoing?
You know, identity theft is one of those things where, it's probably one of the most, it's a common misconception. People think, they get the scams, they think their identity is being stolen, but initially it's just like it's usually their personal information is like, or their email account's been corrupted, or something's been hacked, and like that. Identity theft is usually somebody's posing as them opening up accounts, and using their social security number and that stuff. I know the big one that was common during the whole COVID thing was the IDES scam, where people were getting the unemployment notices in the mail. That was a big one too. I guess the biggest concern is everybody wanted to report it, but they don't report it to us, they report it to IDES. I got it. And that's the biggest one that's going on right now, obviously, and there's other internet scams and like that. But I think in the area so far it's been fairly quiet. We still get a couple of the ruse burglaries every once in a while, and the seal coating scams. That's kind of good. It's kind of the season for the seal coating scams, and that's really the only things we're really kind of tackling at this point. So.
People are behaving themselves in the Lake Barrington, North Barrington area?
For the most part.
For the most part.
I think the golf cart situation is the town, so that's another one we're kind of really interesting to see.
Well, we welcome you. We appreciate your joining us, and certainly if there's anything that we can do to be of assistance, we'll be value the service that you provide. And now that we know our Robin Stankiewicz replacement is with us, we appreciate it.
No problem. And if you guys have any questions, you guys have my contact.
Are there questions from the board? We just welcome. We've prided ourselves on a great relationship. Trustee Scheller has done an able job in chairing our public safety committee, and we appreciate your service, and we value your service, and we're grateful for your service.
And likewise, you guys have always been very good to us as well, and it's a tough time in law enforcement, and we appreciate the support that you guys give us, and especially the people in the community here. It's one of the nicer areas to work, so I wasn't upset when they put me here.
I'll make the same offer that we made a minute ago, which is the welcome mat is always out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda items will now be 5C and D are update reports from Mac Strategies and Fidelity Consulting. And Ryan and Donnie know each other quite well and work together a lot. So if you guys want to come up together, that's certainly fine, or you can go sequentially. It really is fine because you both do a splendid job. And let me just say that we appreciate the fact that during the worst of the COVID uncertainty, you were willing to continue to go full tilt on our behalf, even at reduced fees. And we happily have restored them in the new post-budget. But you guys believed in us and stayed with us, and we're grateful for that. So, Ryan, I'm happy to recognize you first, and then Donnie, you can hit next.
I appreciate that, and since the last time you've seen me, I got to use the reader, so I'm hitting that point.
Happens.
I'm going to say two things and let Donnie say everything, because that's the feeling. But Kevin's right. Don and I work very, very well together on different things. Sometimes an issue might pop up, and he gives me a heads up, or I give him a heads up. I think as a community, sometimes we have consultants that may not have a relationship or work together, and we're a team, even though we do two different things, but we do very similar things. And countless times where something happens and we share information, I think, I can't point to something specifically or deliverable off the top of my head, but we talk a lot about different things. And it was during COVID, something popped up that we had a conversation, and I think that's the one really good thing with having both of us is we know each other, we're friends, we work together, and there's a good rhythm there. And we do appreciate that. I'm going to start out saying I hope the photo shoot went well. If you were not scared of Mila before you met her, you understand why she's a great photographer. She's very good, and as I think I was talking to Karen about it, said she's not shy saying do this and do that, but she really is great at what she's doing. And I know we tried to do this a couple times, and I appreciate all your patience. But it's nice to do that. There's new faces. It's nice to meet the new faces. I think having some continuity and having some pictures and some of that is very helpful. So we'll turn that around here for you to take a look at. But I think it went well, and most importantly, the weather was good. So that was important. I'm just going to hit on a couple high points of stuff that we've done in the past year. Something was mentioned today that I think is another thing we can talk about, but I do want to point to a couple things. We help and work with you closely on drafting the newsletters throughout the year. The gentleman who mentioned the interest with getting more of the veterans LBS aware of what the VA does, immediately I wrote down, maybe that's an opportunity in our upcoming newsletter to put that in there. And that's something I think, thinking through those ideas that things come up, I think that's one of the things that we do very well for you. And I think that could be a nice little thing. Again, and it could be the newsletter, it could be on the website, as we've always discussed multiple times with touching folks for communications, we hope to kind of take the noise. So that might be something in the future newsletter we want to think about doing. And it's something where I don't think we should have it in every newsletter, because sometimes it gets stale, but maybe we pop it in every couple of times, and it's an easy thing to do and a nice thing to do. Talking about the grant, I think the grant and for local businesses to get the grant was very successful. That we got coverage in the Daily Herald, the local media, the Lake County media. That was very successful. But as I was looking through a number of things, big and small, that we do, and a lot of what we do is we do strategy. We do a lot of thinking with Kevin, thinking with Karen, talking to Andy and Jim about things we need to do. I think it was an interesting time, but I think what we did with the Divvy menswear operation, and that seems like 10 years ago, that was a local business. A gentleman who invested here, and we had a good conversation on how do we promote it. And we not only had local media, but we got on Chicago radio. He was very good, and he was very appreciative of it. And he reached out to me afterwards, thank you, and those kind of things. So I think we've had these conversations about, as a village, we don't want to promote one business instead of the other one. We want to promote all businesses. But I think every business we can support, that's good for them, that's good for the community, that's good for the customers. Not only in Lake Barrington, but from the neighboring communities. If they want to spend the money here, we get the sales tax revenue, we're good for that. But I thought that was a good example of highlighting a business. Granted, he had a good story. And, you know, doing a brick and mortar at a unique time was a great retail story, counterintuitive. But I think it's a good example of those kind of things that I would like to continue to do. We've done that in the past, highlighting some businesses. We've talked about highlighting local businesses. So one thing I'd offer is maybe we were talking about this just a few minutes ago, but in our conversations about branding, our conversations about communication, what can we do to promote businesses? Again, it's not picking one business over the other, but getting their story out. And I think that's important. And since we are, you know, we can attract customers from outside of just the community, I'd like to look into that a little bit more. It's a really good example, and the gentleman was very appreciative. I mean, he was very, very appreciative of it. He wasn't naive when it came to doing communications, but he was good. He appreciated it. And I think, you know, he tells people about how to live and work in Lake Barrington. He's got a good story to tell. And I think he's been telling people that story. So that's one thing I was thinking about. We are working on, obviously, the newsletter as well. We do a number of different things, but instead of just getting up here and talking for a long time, I was just going to open it up to any questions that anybody has or any thoughts.
Remember, what I think might be sensible because you guys do collaborate, is Donnie, do you want to report and then we'll take questions to both of you?
Sure.
Together?
Thank you. So I don't know if this could go any worse. I have to follow a media relations expert, a deputy sheriff, and 2 war heroes. So I'm not sure if anything I can say could be added.
There goes my whole cat as another name bias.
So I echo what Ryan says. The village has assembled a really good team here with 2 different tools in the toolbox, but both very effective, working together. And I also think I can speak for Ryan, you know, it's our honor we value our partnership with the village of Lake Barrington, so we were happy during the difficult time to take a reduction. It probably goes without saying that our success is your success, so we're happy to do that. What I do is not nearly as sexy as what Ryan does, unfortunately, making the sausage. I'll just kind of give some highlights since it was been over a year since I've been here, obviously because of COVID, and we're still living through it, managing it. The legislature, basically when COVID started on March 17th, was adjourned for the spring break session, and it never returned until the last 3 days of May of 2020 to do a budget. An emergency budget, kind of wrap things up. They did that somewhat remotely, somewhat in person, and then they left. They did not then reconvene until January to swear in new members, and then they returned a little bit in February, and then I actually, with the rest of the legislators, started returning, and Ryan as well, in I would say April, late March, early April is when we went back full time. And I can speak for myself. I was vaccinated, but whether you're vaccinated or not, we got tested every day. So that was 2021. We started that with there are 4 leaders, 2 Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, Speaker of the House, and Minority Leader of the House, and 3 of those 4 people changed in 2021 for all intents and purposes. Don Harmon, the Senate President, came in a little bit in 2020, but for the most part, we got a new Senate President, Don Harmon from Oak Park. We got a new Senate Minority Leader, Dan McConkey, who represents Lake Barrington, which is very fortunate. We got a new Speaker of the House after about 50 years. Mike Madigan resigned and retired, and Christopher Emmanuel Welch from Westchester, Proviso, I think is where he lives, Westchester? Hillside area. And then Jim Durkin is still the House Minority Republican Chair, who's been there quite a while. So it was very interesting. Again, for all intents and purposes, we have a fairly new governor as well. So we had 3 new legislative leaders and a new governor trying to pass a budget during COVID was definitely interesting. Not a whole lot got done. The budget got done.
The main priority for the village of Lake Barrington and all municipalities is protecting the local government distributed fund, LGDF. And for the first time in many years, we did protect that. That remains unchanged. In fact, it will be a little bit, you should get a little bit more money based upon the way the split is, because it was lowered and now it's been returned to normal, so to speak. So that was our main goal. The other big item that got, so that's budget related. The other main thing that the legislature looked to do and did do was redistricting. Every 10 years, the Constitution requires that they draw new boundaries based upon the census. They drew new boundaries. I don't know if it's based upon the census or not, because the census wasn't exactly completed, and there's probably going to be some lawsuits happening very soon that will challenge that. But redistricting was the other big ticket item that got done. The things that you may have read about that didn't get done, that you said, no gaming really got changed. There were supposed to be some energy bills. That did not happen. And then the Black Caucus had some criminal justice reform and other issues that they were able to successfully pass. And then I'll wrap up with the main thing that I can do for the village is bring money back. And so with the help of Karen Dalton Lang and President Richardson, we were able to bring some money back to the village of Lake Barrington. We actually brought some money back in 2020, or actually 2019, sorry. We got some money in 2019, I have it here, and then we got some more money in 2021. But we got the money back from 2019 that for various reasons was not reappropriated, or wasn't appropriate for COVID. So we got $100,000 for infrastructure. We got $25,000. So the old money was $100,000 for infrastructure, $13,000 for drainage and farm trails, and $25,000 for infrastructure. That was old money that we got reappropriated. And then new money was a $25,000 funding for pond aerator, and $27,500 for infrastructure improvement. So, and I can't thank Karen enough for her help. As so often is the case in Springfield, it's a real fire drill. So I call her at 7 o'clock at night and say, I need a letter right now for you to these 4 people asking for money. And so, of course, she turns it around right away. So she's a great help. And then, as I told Karen on May 31st when we adjourned, and I told her we got this money, so now the really hard work starts, because we actually have to go get the money. And she's well aware of that. She's already been in contact with DCO and other agencies that will help us actually get our hands on the money. So that's the good story that we can tell about Springfield, is hopefully we're always bringing back money back to the village to use for the myriad of projects that you guys obviously need the money for. As Karen said, there's no shortage of projects that we can use, so we'll take whatever we can get and we'll use it very quickly. So with that, I'll turn it back over, I think, to Ryan.
And typically, I mean, I'll go around the diocese as is our custom here, but I think you guys have been characteristically modest about this. We did real well on state grants, Donnie. We did real well on state grants. And
I don't know who's watching, so I don't like to always say it. When my grandmother was watching, it was always good for me to brag, but now I'm a little more modest. We did do very well. You are really.
And that's not by accident. And this is the value proposition of having skilled advocates, is you know how it works. Our new board, we have 2 new board members, as you've met here tonight. Trustee Hayes has a deep familiarity with these kinds of things from his day job. He was head of the Illinois National Guard, as you know, under the prior governor, and does a lot of work for a company that does a lot of government contracting. So he brings an experience, and then Teresa and I do a lot of work together in our day jobs as well. And she kind of is Ryan, I'm kind of Donnie in terms of what we do for Zebra Technology. So I want you to know that I know it doesn't happen by accident. They don't wake up and say, well, those are such nice people up there. It happens because you have an advocate who knows the process, who stays on it. And it's the same with the media. What I really appreciate about Ryan is he's fearless in fact, joyful in telling me that I'm dead wrong. And it's always worked to my advantage because I've always taken his advice. It's not always the most pleasant way to spend 45 minutes for him, but it really is a great outcome because I know I can bounce things off of you conceptually without fear. And then we'll get to the right result because you will see it from a different angle. You think like the audiences we're trying to influence, particularly those in the press. So with that as kind of my setup, I'll yield to Trustee Hayes first for a question and we'll go around the dais.
Well, nice meeting you too. So I got it. You're helping us get the bacon done in Springfield and helping us guide through the legislative process. And you're helping wrap the brand and marketing communications to our constituents.
Correct.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you both. I'm sure I'll see more of you. Thanks for your report.
Pleasure, welcome.
Trustee Perkins.
Yes, thank you so much, guys, for everything. I mean, you obviously have done a lot of work on this, so thank you for all the efforts and the good outcome as well.
With our pleasure.
Thanks.
Trustee Shaw.
Thank you. Brian, with what's happening with the Tribune, how difficult is it for you to get exposure with the Chicago media? It seems like they're all reducing it. It seems like a real challenge.
Yes, it's not only a challenge, but it's a shame.
A little closer to the microphone.
Yeah.
It's not only a challenge, but it's a shame. One of the folks that works for me down in Springfield is Monique Garcia, who used to, you probably recognize the name, she wrote for the Tribune for 10 years, and she was one of their top reporters. And you read this stuff, and it's bloodletting. And for a different client that we work with, a different municipality, he called me today, and he said, do you know who this reporter is? I said, it's an intern. And it's an intern interviewing a mayor of a town, and he was unfamiliar with kind of the tourism hook of the community, and the community is right around our here. And to answer your question, it's a real shame, because the Tribune has such a commitment to that. I think it's also challenging for the Daily Herald. Daily Herald, in the same vein, has become so small. The Daily Herald really prided themselves on covering the communities. The Trib was a little different. They relied on the satellite newspapers. But it's really challenging, and it's tough. I think the one good thing that they've kept whole is that investigative arm of that paper. You know, those strong reporters that look at government, look at industry. Ray Long, who leads this, is a fabulous reporter. So I think for the good parts of having somebody watching what other people are doing, they've kept that intact. But their editorial board is obliterated. There's amazing people that are there. It's challenging. On the flip side, I think it's an opportunity. So for reporters that know a whole lot about the community or is jaded, it's an opportunity to make our case. It's no different from Donnie talking to a new lawmaker about, let me tell you a little bit about Lake Barrington. So I think it is very challenging. It's disheartening, but we have to kind of keep moving on and having those conversations. But and I know you appreciate the media well, it's funny. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saying the Sun-Times was going to go away.
Yeah.
It's kind of counterintuitive. The Tribune is shrinking like it is.
It's interesting. I didn't realize that the Daily Herald too was maybe to an advantage. They take some of your articles and they print them word for word.
You said it, not me, but yes. That's correct.
Yeah, well, at least you get to say what should be said.
Right.
Yeah. So it's good.
But it is a challenge. It's tough. So.
Donnie, the only question I have, how will redistricting affect the village, do you think?
That's a great question. It shouldn't affect the village of Lake Barrington too much, just based upon your location. There's not really anywhere for them to draw from, and as I mentioned, the Senate majority leader or minority leader this is his district. So
And they don't anticipate carving that up so that he doesn't have it.
I don't think so. In fact, there was you could probably cover it just as well. There was a story about someone floated idea of running against him, and then that person was no longer in the district. So
They actually strengthened Leader McConaughey's district. I think out of respect, in previous decades, sometimes leaders went after each other, but I think it's a credit to the Senate President that kind of don't play those games. I think it was collegial to say strengthen you. They're tough adversaries on the floor, they're tough politically, but, you know, I think that was a nice move by the Senate President to say, we're not going to play games with the colleagues, because they have to work together, whether it's donkeys or elephants. So I think as far as our concern, I think we're in good shape.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
Good question, John. On the point that I don't mean to go out of order, but prompt the thought. I have found that newspapers are having to, their editing skills have to get a lot better because they have to use content from third parties rather than their own reporters.
Yeah.
And it's not simply editing in the sense of grammar and sentence structure. It's editing in the sense of knowing what's on the level and what might be a little bit over-enthusiastic embellishment. Since I'm accused of that routinely, I'm very sensitive to it. I wonder if it isn't just your ability is really valued by the person, that you know how to submit things that don't cause the editor to say, this is just not going to go. Is that a fair way to kind of look to John's question about how it's changing?
I think so. The one good part is the main editor for kind of news for the Trib used to be a reporter that worked at the State House Bureau down in Springfield, so I first got to know him when he was down there as an intern, and I have a very good relationship with him. But to your point, to Kevin's point, is he's writing articles and he's editing copy for other reporters, and that's an impossible job. So it is, but that's why I think having information, making the case, making sure that the content is an easy sell and it's cogent, and also not only when we send those releases out, making follow polls and making it newsworthy, helps them kind of make their case.
And Trustee Burke.
Well, you guys are certainly a formidable team. It is to our advantage that you work nicely and closely together. We're very fortunate to have, well, I rarely heap praise on President Richardson, but his foresight.
Very rarely.
About as often as your wife does.
Yeah, no sense of being mean.
Yeah, but really early on, he was the one to push for a small village like we are. You guys make a powerhouse duo, but you make it work. You're cost effective. You pay for yourself, and we greatly, we see that we reap the benefits from that. So we appreciate that. And I guess on a very personal level, reiterating what President Richardson said, when COVID hit, nobody knew what was going on with the economics, and we were tightening our belt, and we went to our partners and said, look, we need some help. You guys never wavered, and I would say not only were you willing and able, but you leaned into the work. You didn't back out of the work, and we stayed very busy, and Brian, you and I worked quite a bit together. Personally on that. So for that, I'm personally very grateful and appreciative that you leaned into the work at a time when there was a lot of uncertainty, about the outcome of that financially. So thanks for what you do and for being here tonight, keeping us informed.
Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to...
Chair, microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Microphone. I wanted to reiterate what Trustee Burke said about being a great team for us, especially during the pandemic. The support you gave us was just wonderful. I really want to thank you so much for that. Ryan, we've gone back and forth a little bit about the barn stomp and also the flags for veterans issue. I was in the process of starting to work on that because while the veterans provide the flags installed at Lake Barrington Shores, they will only sell them to village residents. Obviously, the issues involved there. But I'll be sending something to you on that, okay? And we're working on barn stomp, and I think I sent you that note about the food trucks. That was interesting. And Donnie, the redistricting question was of concern to me because of Senator McConkey. He is a very big supporter, a large supporter of the veterans of Lake Barrington Shores. And he's been, in 2020, he had planned to do a Veterans Expo at Friar Farm with the veterans of LBS, which obviously didn't happen. So just so just give you a little upfront awareness, He's planning on that for 2022 at this point. So I'll be back to you, both of you, on that after I meet with a couple of his people. We get started with the plan, and whatever help you can give us will be greatly appreciated. It's going to also include some other people besides that. I believe the veterans mentioned the Lake County Veterans Assistance Program. They'll be part of that, and some other people too. So I'll be back to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll just say, it's really a coup for the village to have the Senate Minority Leader as your representative.
Yes.
So it's a huge help to what Ryan and I do. It's a huge bonus to the village. And your state rep, Representative McLaughlin, I believe, is a former
Yes.
mayor. And so to have someone that has the Senate Minority Leader and your local rep be a former mayor and understand how municipal government works and how vital it is to everyday services is a real help to the village and helpful to Ryan and I for what we do.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Van Ryn.
If I could piggyback on that for a second, Donnie said it correctly about the change in leadership in Springfield. You know, the years that LGDF was always there, now you have a situation where you have the speaker who is from local government, a huge local government advocate. You know, Harmon, Senate President, huge local government advocate. And obviously, you know, having Senator McConkey, who is extraordinarily sharp as a budget guy, but understands the importance of it. And obviously, the leader Durkin has always been there. So I think the one really neat thing on LGDF, we went from some challenging times to having people in literally positions of power who were advocates. And as you know, I also I work with people municipally. And over the years, you know, Representative Welch was one of the strongest advocates pushing back against LGDF. And you know, Senator Harmon. So looking at that situation when you have people in those leadership positions, including having a town that has a member in leadership who's a strong advocate, I think the days of worrying about LGDF and those cuts, I mean, you literally have the four leaders who, right? I mean,
Value the importance of municipality. And you guys, where we have never had that.
Never had that.
Everybody always looks, oh, take their money. It's sort of like,
it's almost a non-starter. Even if somebody mentions it, I don't know how that gets past them. So I think to me, that's one of the best things to come out of
I
this.
agree, very well said. And I don't think people realize how much the pandemic affected municipalities and what a hit we as municipalities took, and how much we provide and how much we need to make this all run. I mean, it's so yes, I think that's a great thing. I mean, it's a big deal to help have all four of those leaders that are pro municipality.
I'm sorry, Trustee Van Ryn.
Thank you both for your updates. It's great to learn more about what you both do. One thing I've been thinking about in the last couple of months since I've joined this prestigious group is I would love to get a lot of media coverage about our village and the great things happening here and the great people that live here. But I don't want to interrupt our brand, our oasis of gracious countryside living, attract people or activities that we don't want to disrupt that. So how would you suggest we balance that? How do we walk that fine line of bringing a spotlight here without disrupting our brand?
I think that's a very good question. I think our history has been picking and choosing our spots, and there has been things in the past that have occurred here that this board has taken action on, those things that aren't reflective of it. So I think our messaging is consistent on all of that, and picking and choosing those spots and those opportunities. A good example is talking about the grant program, leaning into that, telling the community what's available for local business during the pandemic and how they can help. So I think there's a lot to be said of being that squeaky wheel, but also being smart about those spots. And I think picking those spots is important. So maybe we look at, like I said, highlighting businesses, maybe highlighting and being kind of forward-thinking on some of the conservation stuff. As this money comes through, those could be opportunities to talk about these grants that come in from the state. And it's one thing to get it, as Donnie said, the hard part is actually getting to kick out the money, but he's done, we're halfway there, more than halfway there. So I think that would be opportunities to talk about our commitment to the community in a different way. And I think those are the stories that I think we should tell that's consistent with this community. And I think also maximizing that. If you're always talking every week, putting something out, you become kind of, that doesn't really matter. But I think picking and choosing our spots are fun.
I hope that the fall will permit the two of you to get better acquainted and collaborate. Lots of good things going on here. The ceremony, and I thank Jim Thompson for Tom Gilder tonight is a great example. These are just wonderful people. So, thank you. Further questions for either of our guests before we move on? Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you. Again, it's Ryan and I's honor, and thank you guys for what you do. Because these are not easy jobs, and they've got a lot more difficult the last 18 months. So we appreciate it very much.
Go Irish.
Go ahead. I
got to sneak it in there. I have to sneak it in there. Come on.
Thank you. Be safe, everybody.
They're begging for a comment.
Agenda item 6 this evening is the first opportunity in the agenda for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. There is no one seeking recognition, so we can move to agenda item 7, the treasurer's report. Mrs. Hirsch.
Good evening. Can I take this off while I present?
Sure.
Thank you, because a lot of hot air. All right, so we have before us the financial statements for the 2 months ended June 30th, 2021. So we're 2 months, as I mentioned, into our fiscal year. Looking at the flash report on page 2, you'll see we have total current assets of $3,572,000. We have current liabilities of $840,000, and equity at $2,733,000. Revenues for these 2 months are $906,000, and expenses are at $569,000, giving us net income of almost $337,000. So as we've done each month, we pull out our extraordinary items, and you'll see down kind of below towards the bottom. There used to be a bullet line in these reports, but it seems to have, at least mine's not there anymore, I'm not sure. Anyways, we're pulling out 2 items. You'll see there's been $21,752 of road work that's, we call kind of extraordinary, not part of our regular net income or loss. We're also starting to pull out the featherland expenses because I think that's more accurate to compare net income from one year to the next. So that's new this month. We pulled out $107,000, almost $808,000 to compare regular net income and loss between the 2 years. So once that's done, our regular operation and net income and loss is $466,000 for this year versus $256,000 for last year. So that's a pretty big difference. There's about 3 items that make up that. Sales tax and building permit revenue are 2 of the larger ones. Income tax also this year is trending ahead of last year. So those are both coming in strong. On the expense side, looking on the expenses, you'll see our building plan revenue, building permit plan review expense a little bit higher and inspection expense. That directly ties with our higher permit revenue. And then there's a little bit more of our exterior maintenance is up right this year because we had a brick maintenance done outside, and we have our new windows now installed in Village Hall. So that's a little bit higher from last year to this year. This year to last year, excuse me. So if we turn to page 9 and 10, you'll see we can look at our budget to actual. Just for these 2 months now, total revenues at this point are 28% over actual to budget. So we're trending ahead of budget. Real estate taxes is pulling that up slightly, but we know that's just a timing difference. We receive those taxes twice a year. We've received our first tranche this year. As I mentioned, building permit revenue is way up. We budgeted for 12 new homes this year. We now have 10 in our first 2 months, so we're well on track to meet budget in that category. Page 10, you'll see our total expenditures budget to actual at 50% budget to actual, so trending slightly below budget. That number is pulled up because of the featherwing, so that's a big part of that as well. We're still just 2 months, so hard to make some real hard and fast comparisons, but all in all, we're on a good track, at this point in the year. Any questions before I move on to the other funds? Okay, we'll see. Motor fuel tax fund, we have current assets in there of $477,000, of which $218,493, that's part of our Rebuild Illinois project. There are no plans this year to use any of those funds this year, though. Just turn to Water Sewer Fund. That is on page, excuse me, is that page 3? Page 15. So we have net current assets in there of $1,744,000. There's no major improvements planned in there, just some routine maintenance and repairs this year. So that's going as planned. Any questions before I review the accounts payable? Okay, there's... Sure.
It made me forget, you provided me with some tax, retail income tax reporting when you were talking about use tax. Did you mention?
Well, I will. So sales tax this month, the last month, is up $23,000, I believe. And it's really due to one number. It's a use tax number. And I actually have contacted IDOR to get it, so I get a little more detail on that. But typically when that's distributed through our monthly sales tax distributions, it has to do with items that are typically titled items, like cars bought out of state and then retitled in Illinois. Different than the use tax that we have a different line item for, which would be more like online sales. That's $22,000. If you take, if that's a 1% of something, that's like $2 million. So it's quite a large number, and I haven't really got detail on that, but that really did bump up sales tax this month tremendously from last month.
So is this the first month we would be seeing that?
We get that every month. We get like a small, if you look at the sales tax reports I send you, there's a line down there. We get a small amount each month. But this month, for some reason, it was up to almost $23,000.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're not yet sure why it's jumped like.
Correct. I have a call or a message into Department of Revenue. So unlike most of us who've gone back to work during COVID, their message is still offices closed due to COVID. I mean, never has changed since March of 2020. And they will respond to you via email.
Okay, I was looking for clarification because I was already telling Karen how I wanted to spend those pennies from heaven. She said not so fast.
It's probably not a recurring source of revenue, if that's what you're thinking.
Well, that was what I was told.
No, that's probably not a recurring source of revenue.
Well, I guess in all seriousness, maybe I was confusing that you talked about internet sales. So that...
Different line.
Different line, but
So,
that's also something, is that relatively new where we're collecting that, or have we all?
So the couple things, it's still in flux. It used to be all online sales. All that was given to us through that use tax line, which is a separate line item on the financial statements. It's like really close to hold on. Sorry. Okay, second line. So on page 5 of the report, so on the first page of the income statement, income tax and local use tax is that next line. So that typically is your online sales. So last year we saw a huge increase in that over the years because of COVID, people were buying tons of things online. And then January 1st of this year, 2021, there was a new law enacted, and I'm hoping I get this correct because I've talked about and written about it, but it still is a tad bit confusing. Certain retailers are now required to remit to us directly. And not only do we get, like the big Amazons in the world, you'll see those coming through our monthly sales tax distribution, because what's happening is it's now a destination-based tax. So where the purchaser lives, you're paying that tax. And what the beauty of that is, we also get our home sales tax. So if you buy something on Amazon now, you used to pay 6.5% because that was like the state use tax. Now you'll pay 7.5% plus our 0.5% home rule tax. So it's confusing because not all online retailers are registered to do that. So we will still receive a portion through this use tax line. Otherwise, it comes through our sales tax line.
And how long has...
So what's interesting
how long have
is...
the Amazons of the world been?
So I think this is our second or third month.
Okay.
And what's very interesting is local use tax on our income statement has not changed. You would expect it to, but it has not.
Okay.
So what I'm not quite sure is if we have residents that spend more online than residents in other parts of the state, because you're still going to get sort of the nut from the state. There's a number that gets distributed pro capita. to all the people, but if you're buying more, I think on a percentage basis than other communities, you probably will see less of a flux in your local use tax, if that makes sense. You know, because
But it is, I guess what I'm getting at, it is incremental, is it not, to us? I mean, it's dollars we never used to get, or is that not an accurate statement?
I think the accurate statement is that the home rule portion of that is going to be, is extra of the amount coming from the registered retailers. So the Amazons of the world, if you look through the sales tax report that I submit to you, it's huge now because lots of little ones are on there. But you also see eBay, you see two Amazons, all those. That, the incremental portion that we're getting that's different is going to be the home rule portion.
Right.
And also it's coming to us directly as opposed to going to the state and then being sent out pro rata. I'm not sure how it all is going to...
It's hard, what you're saying, it's really hard to understand how it shakes out. I guess intuitively, and I don't know if this thinking is wrong, but intuitively, particularly for our community that doesn't have a lot of, you know, we don't have a lot of retail sales, and we certainly don't have big box retail sales.
Right.
So either people in our community used to go to Lake Zurich or surrounding communities to go make big purchases, right? Whether those are cars or appliances or whatever they're doing. If our people are now shopping, so we were never getting that retail revenue in the first place.
We're still not though. It only has to be out of state. So if someone from here goes to Lake Zurich and buys a car.
No, but what I'm saying is now people are buying stuff online.
Correct.
And that should benefit us tremendously because it's not a trade-off. What I'm saying is if you live in Lake Zurich and you no longer shop at Best Buy and you shop on Amazon, you're trading dollars for dollars.
Absolutely.
But no, we're not trading dollars for dollars in theory because there's no place to shop for a refrigerator.
Yes, I agree with you.
That's all I guess I'm trying to say. So you would think in time that would really be look incremental to us.
I would agree, and especially I think our residents probably spend more online than maybe some other communities.
Right, so the combination of that, plus it's not a trade for dollars they would just be spending here.
Right.
It would be interesting to see over time if we were
How
able
it
to.
shakes out, because they've warned me too, is there's not a lot, the compliance is not perfect yet. And they're
sure
trying to
it's
shake through that and do some auditing. So you'll see some amounts that get frozen one month. Last month they froze $2,000 from Amazon. And I said, hey, what's going on? So it's pending. And we asked them to resubmit. I'm like, okay. And so we got this month, exact same, no change. So if there's a question, they freeze it. But yeah, I think what I'm trying to caution is until it really shakes out, it's hard, we don't really know.
So I probably shouldn't.
I think you should spend it. Potentially spend.
I told him, do not spend it.
I mean, it's worth getting excited about though. I mean, honestly, just a little bit of LGDF, I think it's gonna be 0.5%. I think we used to get 6%. The communities used to get 6%, now it's like 6.46 or something, that they increased a little bit, just that little bit. You know, income tax is up this year from last year, and that was pre-COVID we're comparing to. So I'm not sure all this money's coming from, quite honestly, because, it's good.
Good.
So that's a very good question. Yeah. And I did report a little bit on Speedway. I think the more reason Speedway's revenues are up is because we all see it, gas prices are up. You know, we pay sales tax on gas, the total price pump at the pump. We're not back to pre-COVID uses on a gallon basis, but between the higher gas pump price and our home rule tax, we're doing quite well. So, any more questions?
In other words, the original financial plan is working.
And our home rule sales tax is working very well.
Yeah, almost like somebody thought about it ahead of time. Funny how those coincidences just fall from the sky like man from heaven. I'm sorry, I digress.
That's fine.
Any further questions at this point from the treasurer? Otherwise, you can move.
Okay, I'll move on to the warrants. There's 4 invoices on warrant A that deserve a little bit of mention tonight. Alliance Contractors for $8,400. That's cleaning and sealing of Woodland Bridge. That was in the budget. HR Green for $3,597.75 for engineering related to Featherwing. That was also in the budget. ILM for $2,245 for algae control on the pond at Featherwing, also in the budget. K McKinnon Associates for $1,512.50 that was for the phase 2 of the TIP research that we actually have a little preview of tonight. And then there's 2 invoices on warrant B to mention, all custom glass for $6,939.50, and that's the final balance on the new windows in Village Hall. That was in the budget. And then finally, Cuba Township Road District for $3,096.30. It's a culvert replacement on Old Barrington Road. In the budget, because there's money in the budget for those kind of projects. There's one last small item I wanted to point out. There's a check for $500 to Greg Wright. I would say the last one on the warrant. He is from Comstock Road Country Band. That was written in July, actually, so it was not on last month's warrant. That was for the festival or the concert. And so it's on the warrant this month for your approval, but that check was written last month. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions on any of this, on the warrants for the treasurer?
Okay. Thank you as always. The chair would like a motion to approve and block agenda items 8A through C. A, approve financial statements as of June 30, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you. Pay bills in the amount of $150,174.86 as listed on the accounts payable warrant A dated August 3, 2021. And C, pay bills in the amount of $100,868.71 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated August 3, 2021. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Hayes. May I please have a second?
Second.
By Trustee Van Ryn. Thank you both. Clerk will please call roll.
Trustee Hayes.
Yes.
Trustee Van Ryn.
Yes.
Trustee Berg.
Yes.
Trustee Perkins. Trustee Schauer.
Total abstain because of the technical service.
Trustee
Oh, it's
Thompson.
next month. Okay, yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, and I'm going to reopen. Can I reopen the vote so Susie can vote?
Sure.
Okay, so when she comes back, we'll move on in the meantime. Agenda item 8 is the administrator's report.
Sure, a Featherlink Park update. Construction work has been completed and a punch list for some minor items was prepared by HR Green and sent to Chicagoland Paving. As-built plans are also being prepared by HR Green. The IDNR was contacted and they will be doing a final site visit soon, but they haven't told me when. Unrelated to the OSLAD grant funding is the installation of the aerators. That work has started. They put in the concrete pad for the electrical box and they'll be out later this week to run the line for the aerators that will be installed. After all the punch list items have been completed, we'll take up the barricades. And in mid-August, Trustee Perkins and I will be meeting on site with the Lake County Forest Preserve District to discuss a possible connection between Featherlink Park and the Red Lake Trail. So we look forward to meeting with them. Last week, the Lake County All Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan annual meeting was held, and an update was given on their mitigation plan along with the SMC floodplain buyout program and other mitigation efforts. The Lake County Emergency Management Agency reported on its disaster assistance and damage assessment processes. And this meeting is a requirement by FEMA in order for them and us to be eligible for FEMA funding if it's ever needed. So it's a meeting that I make sure at least one person from the village attends every year. And then, Attorney Bateman, did you want to give an update on the T-Mobile lease?
Yes, I've reached out to them several times and I've gotten any substantive response. I am fully expecting that we'll probably have to take steps to basically force them off the tower. Technically, I think they think they're in a holdover position until the end of the year because the village did accept rent based upon the old lease, but we really never came to terms on that and rejected my
my thought is that the police says that their equipment becomes ours if they don't remove it within 90 days. So I'm going to use that to probably leverage some expeditious reaction.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
Questions for the administrator on her report?
I have a question, Karen, Dr. Feather. You mentioned the IDNR coming out to do an inspection. So did I hear that correct?
They called it a site visit.
Or a site visit, what's the purpose of their site visit?
I think to make sure that the park got built. Because IDNR is the
Oh,
agency that-
they have oversight for the agency where the
outside
that grant? Okay, that's the connection.
Yes.
Got it.
So going forward, once the as-built plans are submitted and all of the invoices have been in, then we'll be putting together a packet with our auditors, and that has to be submitted to IDNR as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sign was up at the time they were here. Was the sign up at the time they were here?
They're not here yet.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but we have a sign up that has Oslin's grant name in it.
That's her name.
That's what they want to see. But that's in the interpreter sign, so.
I have a question as it relates back to this T-Mobile, and I guess all kind of leases like that. Obviously, we knew that this was coming, that this lease was going to expire. They just dragged their feet through that whole period past.
They have.
Okay.
They have.
Yeah.
They had, initially when they made, Debbie Vernon thought they were making the last, a payment for the last year of the lease. And it turned out that if you counted the years properly, they were making another year's payment, which complicates our an action to evict them, but I think we have some leverage in the language of the lease in terms of saying you're on notice that if you're not off the lease and by X date, we're gonna.
That will get there.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does, and in any event, it's gonna, even under the most strained theory that they might have, they're gone at the end of the year, so. And frankly, to start a lawsuit for 4 months to get them off for 4 months doesn't make sense. No one except the lawyers makes money on that.
Very good thinking.
Good question. I've been a little bewildered by their behavior here, frankly. I mean, they're a fabulous company.
Yeah.
I know some wonderful people who work for them. This is not at all in keeping with what I know their brand and their business ethos to be. So I'm scratching my head because it just doesn't make sense for them to behave this way.
So originally they were saying, well, you know, we're in chaos because we bought Sprint and we've got, and they do still have another lead, you know, because they are Sprint, they took over Sprint's position on the tower as well. They actually have the right to have equipment there through 2023, just not this equipment. So, and what I said, when I did talk to the in-house guy at T-Mobile, I said, well, I hope you don't think we're going to extend that Sprint lease in 2023, because not how you've behaved in these negotiations.
Are they doing that with their own in-house lawyers or is it outside counsel?
They do it not with lawyers, but with site representatives, the outside consultants, basically.
Have they tried to contact you?
Oh, we started talking a couple of years ago, to your point, and I think we reached out to them well before the lease expired, saying, hey, the lease is going to expire next year, let's start talking about this, and then the Sprint buyout happened, and it just kept getting delayed and delayed, so.
Frankly, they make money off of how much less they can pay us.
I would say this, that the agent, the consultant, actually, he told us to prepare the lease. They wanted to sign it. We prepared it, signed it, and then somebody at a higher level of T-Mobile quashed the deal. And that's really all the real solid information I can get from them.
So ostensibly, that would mean that a competitor, not currently on the tower, could approach us for the purposes of leasing that space themselves.
Oh, sure.
Terrific. I'm just bewildered by this, but Andy's question got me thinking about it. Anything else on the administrator's report? Okay, then agenda item number 9 is the clerk's report.
For the summer newsletter?
Lisa, we can't hear a microphone.
We are currently working on getting the summer newsletter out. I'd like to have that in mailboxes around Labor Day. We'll be highlighting our modified barn stomp and looking forward to see how, what the turnout's going to be like for the community with that, with all the changes that we've made. And I'm sure Trustee Thompson can give you some details on that. If you have any info that you'd like to see in the newsletter, I would need it by tomorrow. or any information that you'd like to have in our winter newsletter.
Well, I think the comment earlier about what services are available through the county for veterans would be worthwhile, and perhaps Trustee Thompson can put you in touch with the new head of the veterans.
I can give you the information on that.
Okay.
Because the veterans work with them and also the flags.
Great. Yeah, I love my new flag that you got for me.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah. And
Sorry I couldn't install it.
it gets great use every day. Anything for the clerk? Have questions? Terrific. We can move to agenda item 10, reports of the standing committee. A is COVID-19 response task force. Trustee Burke.
Thank you. In a word, or 2 words, I guess, Delta variant seems to be taking center stage in our ongoing challenges with COVID-19, driving new cases and creating quite a bit of stir around the science of vaccination and masking. And anybody's, unless you're living in a cave, you know about that. And, talking about everything from breakthrough cases to vaccinated people to the fact that vaccinated people can now carry this and pass it on to other people, is creating a lot of confusion around, from a public health standpoint in terms of how we are responding to that. Certainly, there's focus on remaining on 2 things. One is the vaccination rate is playing a critical role. We're now beginning to see in those areas what they call hotspots, or areas that have fallen considerably behind on vaccination rates, and or may not have been following some of the guidelines as closely for social distancing, masking, etc. So some of this maybe is coming home to roost a bit and creating a significant concern right now. In Illinois, with the focus on vaccination, since I reported last month, vaccinations are up to 13.3 million in Illinois, which is a 51% rate for fully vaccinated. That's only moved a couple of points since last time, which was 49%. So at least it's moving, but it's moving slowly. Likewise, in Lake County, 52% of our residents are fully vaccinated, which is up from 50% that I reported on last month. So, but keep in mind, it'll be interesting to see if the needle moves at all this month, because there's certainly been a big, strong push in light of the new facts that are coming forward about Delta variant, and we are seeing some evidence that people are now realizing, it may be time to go out and get vaccinated. So there seems some added incentive to do so. Illinois remains in phase 5, even though cases are up, positivity is up. In test positivity for 7-day running average is 5% in Illinois, 4.2% in Lake County. There are hotspots throughout the state, as you might be aware. There's huge swings from county to county in terms of what's going on with test positivity. Hospitalizations are bumping up. The good news is that death rates aren't necessarily bumping with that, because it is showing that that the vaccine does do its job against making, even if you contract the disease, more serious, keeping it from becoming more serious. So that's the good news. And we know the majority of 65 and older, it's now in the 80+% range. in Illinois and Lake County that have gotten fully vaccinated. So our most vulnerable senior citizens, seem to understand the importance of this, and that's why we're seeing a lot less serious illness and death in that population. I think as we move forward, and President Richardson and I have had a few conversations on this, and I think there are some fascinating things being discussed today about things to look out for. Employers, can they now require vaccinations? This is a big debate. Establishments, restaurants, theater, can they require vaccination for entry to these events? And the last one is what's really going to involve with masking requirements, particularly for those who are fully vaccinated. So these are all hot topics that are on the table right now. In fact, it's interesting, I'm working with a couple of clients in the manufacturing space that are really, really wrestling with, when you're in the food business and you have this issue of really wrestling with, can we just mandate this? And the answer is, well, the law seems to support it, but the challenge on the other side with the labor market so tight, what people are afraid of is if they come down too hard on their employees, they'll go somewhere where they're not coming down too hard. So people are walking a very fine line between, in restaurants, everybody's going through the same thing. We know labor market's tight. So if you start clamping down on these workers, then they might find a path of least resistance and go somewhere where they're not being required to do that, and then you're losing out labor. So it's going to be a huge challenge. And lots more to come on that as we watch moving forward. And that's my report on COVID. I will just say, to get it off the charts, economic development, I think we had our hours work on that. I really don't have anything else to report unless anybody has any questions or comments that we wanted to make during this.
So the new restaurant on Route 14 that's coming up next to TV Menswear, any idea on what their soft or hard open dates are?
Karen, we have a better idea than that, simply based upon where they are in their stage of planning and permitting or what's going on.
Yeah, Domenico's, they hope to be open in the fall of this year. They just recently submitted plans for architectural review, and that's in the process. And they're also working with their landlord to put up an awning and permitting outside of the store as well. So they're doing some exterior improvements as well as interior. So soon. Or not soon enough.
So will village officials and staff be invited to the soft opening?
I hope so.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I hope it's a wet opening.
The answer is yes.
Great.
How's that?
Questions for Trustee Burke on either topic?
I actually have a question. So you mentioned the, I think you said it was 52% of Lake County, 51% of Illinois. Does this include, do these numbers include like children as well? Or, I mean, or is it just those that can be vaccinated?
Great question. It's those who are eligible to be vaccinated, yes.
Okay.
So it doesn't include everyone, it includes those who are eligible, yes.
I mean, I guess I just don't get like what are some of the reasons that people are coming up for not being vaccinated, other than it would be detrimental to their health, or what are the reasons?
Well, I mean, obviously that it's not really my position to say, other than what I know, what I hear, what I read. But there's a lot of people will tell you everything from. They don't believe the science, they believe it's not fully vetted, they believe it's not fully approved, they believe they don't need it, they believe that if everybody else gets it, then I don't have to worry about it, or some people simply either don't acknowledge that COVID is really real, or they view it as no different than the flu or a common cold, and they don't think of it as something serious that they need to protect themselves against. So, and you read a lot of things, and there's so much misinformation, it's hard to get to the science of it. But I mean, my wife told a story the other day. Her mother has a caretaker, one of her caretakers, and says, I'm not getting that. They had to finally let her go because they're like, you're too much of a risk. Because she said, I'm not getting it because everybody knows there's they're putting tracking devices in us, you know, when they give us this vaccine. I mean, this is a relatively intelligent person who is obviously reading too many online, you know, articles on Facebook or somewhere that, and I mean, she with a straight face said, I don't want to track her. And I'm like, wow, that's remarkable.
Right, okay,
So,
thank you.
but, you know, to that end, though, what I would say, Susie, is that the push is, you know, getting back to the employers that I was referring to, people are still trying to find ways to incent, not ways to threaten, but ways to incentivize, right? And say, if you do this, we will reward you in this way, as opposed to, if you don't do this, we will terminate you. And I think that's most, even municipalities, you see a lot of people who are incentivizing with prizes and gifts and money and lottery tickets and just get people, you know, if they're just don't want to do it, maybe this is the, you know, the $100 lottery ticket is the difference between going out and getting it done. So then there may be some where there's accessibility issues, but I think that's become pretty small, you know, pretty small.
I got 6 shots, 2 Moderna, 4 vodka.
Well, to that end, Kevin, I think the other interesting science is also that you're hearing about are the pharmaceutical companies responding now to, you know, whether we are in line for booster shots down the road, or how, you know, whether vaccines over time are losing their efficacy. And there's still, the studies are still somewhat incomplete on that, but like many, there may be requirements, you know. But the bottom line is the science does support that the vaccine, A, keeps people from getting sick, B, keeps people from getting sicker than they would otherwise, even if they contract it. And that's what the science would say today, and the data would support that in terms of how quickly we got our seniors vaccinated as a priority, how quickly those death rates went down dramatically, you know, from just that portion.
This will become an endemic disease, and we may never get rid of it, but we won't be forever ruled by it. And I think it's unrealistic for anybody to expect that we're going to eradicate COVID. We're going to live with COVID. And we're not going to get super sick by and large, and we're not going to die. And that's a victory in my book, because I got a flu shot and all kinds of other shots, tetanus shot and other things. Okay, we can move to agenda item 10B, which is branding and communication. Trustee Van Ryan.
First off, I wanted to thank all the trustees for meeting with me and giving me their input and thoughts on the great work that Jim has already done and what the opportunities are ahead for us. Based on those discussions, I think that one of the activities that I consider the most low-hanging fruit is to develop a new logo for the village. I think the one that we have today has represented us well, and to continue to promote our brand, I would like to work on that, and I have not yet met Ryan and would love his input on that, but I see that hopefully being available for our winter newsletter. And then the second priority is to draw more traffic to our website. I think the team here, Karen and Lisa and others, have done a great job building up all the resources there. So I'd like to drive further traffic there. Research shows today that the buyer's journey starts online. And so I think that applies to businesses that we'd like to attract here and residents we'd like to attract here. So by driving these potential business leaders and residents to our website through other social media engagement, we can do that. So LinkedIn is a great example. So I'd like to work with Karen and Lisa on how do we build a presence for the village on LinkedIn with little teasers driving people to our website. So I see the logo and LinkedIn as two activities I'd like to pursue in the coming weeks. And we'll have further updates for you soon.
Questions for Trustee Rivera?
I have one. Sure. I know we talked about it a little bit. I think it's an excellent idea. My question is, what about the Oasis Countryside program?
What do I think of the brand?
Yes.
I love it. I think it's spot on. I think it describes our mission and our vision well. And I think it has legs.
Terrific.
Further questions? If not, we'll move to 10D, external relations. I just really have two things, or one and a half. I joined with 180 mayors around the country in signing a letter to the congressional leadership in support of Congress taking action to support the Dreamers. There was a recent U.S. court decision in Texas that held that the DACA program is unlawful, which necessitates a change in the law by Congress so that there's permanent protection for people from deportation and provides a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. And I do this in my personal capacity. It doesn't commit anybody on this board, but I joined with other mayors in the area. Mayor from Algonquin, the mayor from, where did you used to work?
Howard Park.
Howard Park, thank you. Highland Park, there was a couple of others in Rockford, and I've talked to some of the mayors that I know around the country. A bunch of us signed it. It was bipartisan, and that's just a public informational matter for you. Then the other thing is, and I really appreciated Andy's point, I printed this out because it's a Chicago Trib article. I subscribe online to the Trib, and the headline is, "Get on board and move along, Chicago bars, restaurants start serving vaccinated only, requiring masks." What we're seeing is what you're saying, and I see it in my practice, what I do with her and with my school bus going, is, you've got to have a valid proof of vaccination, or wear a mask. And I don't make a judgment about it lightly, because people have a right to their point of view on this. But I have a wife who's immunocompromised, so I'm very, very protective about it, because I take it very personally. A tough issue, but I would be happy at some point to run the board through the issues regarding vaccine credentials. There are three big issues: privacy, security, and equity. And there are different technologies. The media does an incomplete job. They talk about the paper credential that those of us who have been vaccinated carry, and they talk about the smartphone app, but they don't talk about the secure card credential, which is akin to the Starbucks card. And it provides a way to balance privacy, security, and equity. And there isn't a millennial I know who hasn't had their phone die because they haven't charged the battery. And most municipal transit systems of size have both the smartphone app and the secure card together. When I go to London, I have an Oyster card and the TfL app on my phone to get access to the two. So more on that, but it's something that's a lot of what Teresa and I work on together. So that's my report. We can move to...
Question, how many fake vaccine cards do you think there are? And it just seemed, the card that I got after I got the 2 shots looks so easy to duplicate, and I'm just wondering how many...
There's a good reason for that, John. It is easy to duplicate. That's exactly right. The fraud and counterfeiting potential is
that's a shame,
which is why a secure card or a phone app. And then the other piece of this is within both the secure card and the smartphone, there are 2 options for each. It could be a simple barcode QR code, and then there can be a real-time link to a database that's distributed ledger blockchain. And the cards that have the QR code barcode address privacy because they don't have intelligence in it. So it can't follow you, it can't be read, it doesn't track you, and it's also very, very inexpensive. Not everybody can afford a $1,000 iPhone to run the app. And the security is dramatically better than it is with paper credentials. I've been working on this not only in the US, but in Canada, and the United Kingdom, and Australia. And, the English-speaking general, from your experience, the Five Eyes, are all struggling with the same thing in all the countries. And it's a very interesting thing, but the technology is there that can balance it. And part of this is just, it's become so terribly and tragically so. Tragically so. To Andy's point earlier. So it splits families. Agenda item 10E is Finance, HR, and Administration. Trustee Hayes.
Well, I know James has sent us all some information about ARPA. that money finally was flowed months later. Federal government, I got with Karen, and I had a chance to get with Peggy here to talk about where that's going, and I know this was some study. Karen found the appropriate people to get us initiated in that process. I'm sure we're going to have another discussion about how that come into play, but it's clear that some of the things that we did in the grant arena completely fit within the bounds of being able to basically pay ourselves back for that thing, so that win-win for everybody. But there's just complex, there's more to follow. There's a 35-page document if you're interested. You can read about these standards from the Department of Treasury. So I'll pass it around if you choose to read it. I'll leave it to the experts. But and the only other thing, reflecting back on my comments last month, the next few months I'm going to get together with Karen over a few times. I really think we need to have a plan for the village facilities, a long-term look. And I mentioned that last time. My thought is to push that into the next year's budget. Don't try and accomplish everything this year, but put a framework around that. Share it with the board, because I think that'll help the whole budget process long term. So I think that's another thing that is in our best interest as a village to do. And the reality is the new windows, I got two of them, they look great. We got a few more to do, of course, but I think that's in our best interest to do. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Well, and I'm looking forward to, I appreciate your willingness to take leadership on this, Rich, because it's not simply this facility. I worry about that barn at Friar Farm.
Yep.
And now we're buying additional property, featherling and equipping it. And I learned one thing, if you don't care for capital, it walks away from you.
We have a water plant.
Yeah, and a water plant, yes. So thank you for that, I think. Are there questions for Trustee Hayes on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
10F is infrastructure and open space. Trustee Perkins.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things here. The 2021 road program is moving along very smoothly and on schedule, despite COVID things. So that's good news. And then also I just want to give a shout out to the Cuba Road District, Park Road District. Last week there was a storm, as everyone knows, probably you were here in Illinois, and there were some trees down, and they were out early in the morning getting things taken care of. So we want to give them a shout out. And that's all.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Yes.
I'd like to add to that because Cuba Township also came through our neighborhood. A lot of people have dragged branches and stuff to the curb and came by and just picked everything up and ground it up or threw it out. I was shocked to see that. One guy was very fortunate. He had just cleared a bunch of old dead trees and he had already carted it to the curb. And thought, I'll just put my stuff out there. That stuff is never going away. And the very next day it was gone. So he was very insightful on that. But yeah, they do a great job responding very, very quickly to these things.
Further questions for Trustee Perkins?
I have a comment though, when I think about in relation to the infrastructure you do, it kind of all ties in a bigger bucket. You should probably talk.
Yeah.
How do you wrap all of it so you can see all of it, not just facilities, but the whole. So, okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I love that, yeah.
Right.
I love when Cuba Township takes the fallen trees and turns them into firewood for people to come get. So that's a nice little. That's a movie, yeah.
We have mulching and firewood.
Yeah, Mrs. R gets both. So, okay, agenda item 10G, public safety. Trustee Shaw.
Thank you, President Richardson. We're working on updating the Village of Lake Barrington Emergency Operations Plan. I did meet with Chief Cryer from the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District, Chief Geary from the Wakanda Fire District, Lieutenant Burke from the Lake County Sheriff's Department is going to pass it along to whomsoever the new emergency management agency coordinator is. Since Kent left, no one seems to exactly know who that is, but we're passing it along. So we're going to do it. Okay. Also to Cuba Township, and then I would like Administrator online has suggested that once we get all these people, kind of get copies of them, get them into the program, that we perhaps meet in September and kind of have a roundtable about how to update it with all of their input. And the two that I haven't, I think we probably should, would be Good Shepherd Hospital and Campbell, which are on the list here.
They all have that.
They all have that. Yeah.
Everybody on that list got
That's got, yeah.
when we first gave it
Yeah,
out, so
so
they all have.
I think I'm all back involved in it all.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't have that much. This is the Lake Zurich Fire District.
They just have a little tiny piece, but they're kind of, not really.
Yeah, okay.
But they've got one.
Yeah, okay. So anyhow, we're working on that as we move ahead with the objective to try to get that updated by the end of the year. Because it is important that we have an emergency operations plan. We all should be aware of what's included in it, so that if in fact we get a worse storm than we had last week, we know what to do. So that's one of the main things that I've been trying to do along with Administrator Rowe.
What day was that last week?
Thursday morning.
Thursday morning.
Early Thursday morning, late Wednesday night.
Yeah, I thought the windows were going to blow in.
And the lid was up in a flash, and I didn't hear a thing.
Sounds
Because I didn't have my
familiar.
hearing aids on either.
Sounds familiar.
Because you were in Europe, probably. Lake County Sheriff's Department, we heard from earlier, as far as the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District, they're having a blood drive on Saturday, August the 21st. Administrator Dalton and I usually contribute to that, and in conjunction with that, they're also having an open house from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. They're having a breakfast with the firefighters at 8, sky boom demonstration at 9, extrication demonstration at 10 at noon, and then the blood drive all day long. So you're certainly invited to go down to station number 1, which is right across from the Onion Pub, and participate in their open house. I think they have a new piece of equipment. It looks like a new piece of equipment that they bought.
And Lisa has posted that information on our website already, so if you forget, you can take a look on our website and do that.
Barrington Countryside approved a $17 million operating budget for next year. But the one interesting part about Barrington Countryside is most of their firefighters are contracted out there, necessarily part of, they have that arrangement. And they issued $3.5 million in bonds to cover construction of station number 3, which is down on Highway 59 across from the Shepherd's Health operation. So they're moving along. Wakanda Fire District, they're going to joining the communication system with co-op emergency weather with Cuba Township and some of the other agencies around here. So I would hope that we likewise will get involved with that. And that basically is it my report.
Questions for Trustee Shaw? Then we can move to 10H, Veterans Affairs and Special Events. Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. E-News update. We've gone from 291 subscribers to 297. Getting close to 300. Please tell your friends and neighbors, go door to door, solicit. Do whatever you can to get us to 300.
Maybe we should do what they're doing with vaccines. Have it said, like first place is dinner with Andy B, second place is 2 dinners with Andy B.
Yeah. We'll take that up immediately. And Zaza, of course. Special events. So the Fire Found concert, the Country Western Band Comstock Load, we had 123 concert goers. If anyone's interested, 58 vehicles. And we want to thank the auxiliary police and the veterans of LBS for traffic control. We spent $1,660 of the $2,000 budget. 7 p.m. Thursday, August 19th, Kevin Purcell and Lake Burners, rock and roll cover band. Everyone here prepared to dance and sing. Trustees and staff encouraged to show their stuff. Barnstone, Village Administrator Karen Dahl Lang, Executive Assistant Lisa Payne Talapa, and I are working on Barnstone, scheduled for Saturday, September 18th, with a rain date of Saturday, September 25. Village road signs promoting our restaurants remain up. I've changed a couple of them. I continue to ride the circuit. I have to go again tomorrow over by the coffee shop. One came down, so hey, you know the metal struts that they're on? Well, somehow the mowers cut the bottoms off.
Oh my God.
The struts, yeah. They left the sign on the strut, but you can't put it back in the ground. It's just bizarre. I've never seen it like that. Anyway, whatever. Village newsletters will continue to include note about Fire Farm available for picnics, special events, etc. Update on my work to have Cole Komet of the Chicago Bears charity event in Lake Barrington. I had a phone conversation with Bears President Ted Phillips' first assistant. That's pretty high up. And she's contacting Cole's agent to put us in touch. This will take significant time. But if anyone knows Cole or his family, his agent, or anyone close to him, I would appreciate their contacting me or giving me some information about how I may also go about it that way. I'll be meeting with the Lake Barrington Countryside Park.
Can you mention where Cole commitment to college community?
Oh, jeez. Continuing on, I'll be meeting with the Lake Barrington Countryside Park District at their August meeting to discuss how we can partner and add resident value to our relationship and support our Oasis brand. The Feathering Park quote-unquote soft opening as soon as Karen said. I have an idea about maybe having, if we can perhaps get an expert to take village officials and staff through the park and explain its nuances for us. Give us an idea of exactly what's happening there. And then the grand opening, it looks like, will be sometime in 2022. Let's see, I've contacted and left messages for the Lake County Forest Preserve District to meet and discuss prospective partnership opportunities. Karen, how are you going with that fellow?
What with what now?
The Lake County Forest Preserve District guy, his name starts with a T, I think. You
Yeah, so Trustee Perkins and I are meeting with them to talk about a connection between Feathering Park and Grassy Lake Trail.
Right.
So that's been set.
Okay.
So that's what you were talking.
I'd like to talk to the guy somehow.
Regarding the connection?
No, regarding what maybe we can do together about an oasis of gracious countryside living in all the open spaces that they have.
When we meet, we can ask who that person would be at the Lake County Forest Preserve District. It's probably not him, but he probably can direct us who.
That's probably why he hasn't got it back to me.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you. The Veterans Affairs. The Veterans will provide August concert and September Barnstone parking assistance at Friar Farm. And you've already met Bill Bishop, the new Veterans LBS president. Those are my remarks, Mr. President, my report. Thank you.
Questions for Trustee Thomas?
What's exactly happening with Barnstone?
It's September 18th.
And
we're in the process of deciding exactly what we're going to do there. Obviously, we're not going to have s'mores, even though we want to. But
BYO.
Right, we're working on potential for food trucks, and we have the band, of course. Lisa's working on the band that we're going to have. So we'll have another meeting shortly, and we'll be back to you regarding exactly what's going to happen there.
Lisa, Jim, all those dates will be in the new newsletter, I presume?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Two quick comments. One is, did you mention where Ted Phillips went to college?
Mr. President?
And
I'm being overwhelmed. This is.
And the second comment, on a more serious note, I attended the concert, Friar Farm concert, with my wife and some of our friends, who later, they confessed that they didn't live in Lake Barrington, but lived in unincorporated parts, on Main Street down there. So we probably shouldn't charge them, but they did give $20 for their ticket.
Oh, right, okay.
So then they felt bad, so they threw $20 into the guitar case, and I think everything was fine. Everybody loved it. Everybody who was there loved it. It was a really fun, great community event, and everybody had the same comment, which is, we need, you guys need to do a better job publicizing this because people just don't know about it. People don't know that it was taking place. So,
So much for the postcards we sent to every resident.
Well,
well, the question is, I will tell you, no one recalled seeing a postcard in my house because I don't know how many were sent, but if it's one, it probably didn't do its job, and it rarely does if it's one. But my point is, I mean, all my neighbors, people were just like, they found out about it later and like, oh my God, I had no idea. So I'm saying a single postcard mailing is probably not going to be adequate to get most people out. And since we know we struggle for people to get our e-news, and we know we struggle to get them to go to our website, we still have, that's why we need people to go to our website.
Maybe we can get the notices out to the HOA presidents that we have.
Yeah, I'm just looking for another form of outreach. And HOA presidents are a good way to do that.
There's a reason why we didn't have a sign up there on Friday.
Oh, I understand that too.
Yeah, because we don't want all the,
I think it's
all
more
your
of an
friends from non-Lake Barrington residents to show up.
I know. But like to Karen's point,
Sure.
we have a very, very active HOA and we have a very active communication. Our communication goes out to 44 homes and it's very professionally done. And people see that, and I'm telling you, if I would tell you that if we only had it on that site, you may have picked up 28 additional people.
Well, there's the LBS newsletter too.
Yeah, because we had started trying to get a list of HOA
Yep.
people, we haven't got, and that's my fault for us to continue to get through that. But I will not,
Yeah, I think that's a big
make
part
sure
of
to do that.
a big opportunity for
Yeah.
community outreach. And some of them aren't as
Absolutely.
formal as others, but I have a sneaking feeling that a lot of communities still have email distributions and other things. You can do two things. One is you can attack that and get people to start subscribing to our e-news.
Right,
So,
sure.
if our person said, by the way, for more great information like this, please sign up for this, or please see the Lake Barrington, website or whatnot.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think, we can do a lot for that. Anyhow, I didn't want the messages, I thought it was a great event, and I wasn't being critical.
No,
I was disappointed that more people didn't enjoy it, because it was really
We
fun.
struggled with that in the past, and like I said, I started going after HOAs, I just didn't follow up well to do that. And I think we'll go back through that and get to it.
We can keep working on that.
Yeah.
Well, the rule of thumb, in campaigns in these towns that you guys taught this year, if you're gonna drive awareness, you gotta mail 6 pieces. And they need, and this is not a criticism, they need greater visual pop. And so we need to go back to Brad, who had been our vendor from before, because he did a great job with those other postcards we did. We're gonna do it that, if we're gonna use mail as a channel, there are some pretty decent proven rules of thumb around it in terms of frequency and volume that you're gonna.
Oh, sure.
Man, none of that's an indictment or a criticism.
No, absolutely not.
I know all the time at my house, I'll say to my wife, hey, did you get the mailer on this, or did you get, and then she'll be like, I don't think so, which just means she went like this. And this is stuff that she's never gonna work in, but if it doesn't catch her eye, she's sorting the mail.
That's right.
It's just one of 20 things that are junk mail in her mind, so something has to tell her, either receiving it more than once, or it's something that needs to pop that says this is beyond, this is relevant
And
to.
the mailing one, once that's an issue with our budget, because it's like $1,000 every time we do a post.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's-
I realize, I'm saying.
The other thing is that we can put a sign up there, like the day before the event, that type of thing. Yeah, the one that goes back and forth, we'll get that, yeah. And we'll get a drone,
That was fun, well done, so thank you for what you did.
I can see why we want to restrict the barn stop to residents, because in the past, we've spent a lot of money to feed the people without really charging them much. But I guess I have a problem, why do we not want to invite the public to the concert when it really isn't going to cost us anything more to have more people there?
Well, the idea behind the concerts, John, is to foment camaraderie between the residents. You know, make sure that everybody gets to know each other and form a better bond. And honestly, the fire farm is not that big. You know, to have all kinds of people be coming in there, driving in from all over the place. So we would, at least from my, you know, I mean, I could very easily be wrong, but my perspective is this is something that we want for village residents, to build the bond we have with the Oasis.
It's a nice amenity.
Yes.
It's a nice amenity, I agree, but if we're trying to promote our wonderful community, I don't know, it seemed like spread the word. That's just my thought. It's not, in my opinion, it's not costing us any. I can see with the barn stomp, it cost us because we had to supply food in the past and do everything else. But to this, you're paying for the band, and you got the land, and if you get too many people down the line, maybe you're restricted, but it would certainly be nice to get 500 people out there to enjoy your concert. And you got the same amount of investment. That's mine. It's same amount of investment, but it's...
We need to watch for the parking because the paved parking is what we use for people with accessibility cards, and that runs out.
Yeah.
So,
and the parking, the grass parking is limited as well. I mean, it's large, but it's limited to a certain extent. Plus, the grassy area, the Ravinia style place where the people sit, that is a limited space as well.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand. Okay, it's done.
Yeah, I guess my last comment, I wasn't thinking like creating Woodstock or Country Thunder or anything like that. But I do like the communal, the community oriented, because I felt like I didn't have the people that were there, which is fun, to walk around and to talk to people, and I like that. And it's not a huge place, and it doesn't really have to fill up.
No.
I think you're going to get more people this time around purely because of word of mouth. In other words, if four of my neighbors went and had a really good time and they talked to their neighbors and said, you should come to this next one, it's going to be fun. I really think the good news about the way it was done and the way it was received is everyone who attended would be likely to tell somebody else that they should go, as opposed to don't waste your time if it's really boring or it wasn't. I think you're going to get more people just because of that. Which would be great.
Thank you for your comment.
Much to consider.
Yes.
There's no agenda item for old business under 11, so we can move to the ordinance under agenda item 12A. Safety, accountability, fairness, and equity today, Safety Act, ordinance amendment. Mr. Baker.
And the General Assembly did in February pass what is called the Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Safety Act, which in great part dealt with criminal justice reforms that were approved by the state legislature. And were signed by the governor. But one small part of that statute is what's called, provides for whistleblower protection. And the Safety Act statute amends the Public Officer Prohibited Activity Act and creates a new statute which prohibits a unit of local government, an agent or representative from that unit of local government, or another employee from retaliating against an employee or contractor who reports an improper governmental activity, activity, or cooperates with an investigation, or testifies in a proceeding or prosecution. So one of the things that this statute requires, in fact the most essential thing, is that it requires local governments to identify one or more auditing officials who are identified as the persons who a whistleblower would report their complaint to. And that's what this ordinance you have does. It basically adopts a village policy against
retaliation against whistleblowers, which mirrors in almost every respect the new statute, and then one thing in particular it does is designate auditing officials, and what we've recommended to our clients is to name alternative auditing officials, one being the village administrator, one being the village attorney, and one being the village treasurer. Sorry to surprise you. Okay. But I think that way there's subject matter expertise relative to different kinds of whistleblower complaints that might come forward. And that's the essence of it. The village has already, I think, most of my clients have already gotten a letter from the state's attorney of Lake County saying, let me know as soon as you have designated who your auditing officials are. And so my recommendation is to pass this ordinance because it is basically the minimum necessary to comply with the statute.
Are there questions for council?
By the way, I would say there's a lengthy memo in your package, and that was not really done for your purpose. That was done more for the purposes, for all our clients, but particularly for those who have police departments, because there's much more in the statute that affects the operation of police departments, and there's only one small part that deals with the whistleblower protection, and that's actually subpart 17 of that memo. The rest of it, you might read as it'll be interesting, but if you read it, you'll understand why it's hard to become a police. It's hard to be a police officer.
It is. So, questions for council? There being none, the chair would like a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-0-10. Thank you very much. An ordinance amending Chapter 8 of Title 1 of the Village of Lake Barrington Code. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Scheller, may I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Is that Trustee Burke? Thank you. With masks on, it's hard to...
I know it is.
Can't read. Lips, thank you. Clerk, will please call the roll.
Trustee Scheller?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Hayes?
Yes.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Van Ryn?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Agenda item 13A, Flint Creek Corridor Restoration Project Open Lands Grant Resolution. I'll yield to the administrator.
Sure. So the village received a $10,000 grant from the Open Lands program through ComEd. It's the same grant that we received a couple years ago for the Healthy Hedges project. So getting used to filling out that application. But a few months ago, Kevin Chihuahua and myself from Citizens for Conservation, we got together one night and hacked that out and submitted it, and we got it. And it's basically, this will be a pass-through grant. It's not going to cost the village of Lake Barrington any money. The sharing part will come from Citizens for Conservation. They've received numerous other grants for this project, and it'll be from the Flint Creek Corridor, actually all through Lake Barrington, and they'll be doing bits and pieces of it. But with this $10,000, they're going to focus on the part outside of our village hall here. So I know working with Lake County Forest Reserve, the village, and the lands that they already own along the corridor. So it's very exciting. It'll be a multi-year, long-time project because they do little bits at a time, but they're getting going on it. So
Is that going to be behind us there?
yeah. So,
Questions for the administrator on this? If not, then chair would like a motion to approve resolution number 2021-R-12, a resolution authorizing and ratifying the participation of the village in the ComEd Green Region Program for the Healthy Hedges Project. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Thompson, may I have a second, please?
Second.
By Trustee Van Ryn, thank you both. Write that down. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Van Ryn?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Hayes?
Yes.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Scheller?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Agenda item 14, new business. ILCMA Summer Conference. Karen attends this pre-COVID regularly, and now that they're meeting again in person, we'd like to do likewise. I think it's a great thing for her to do, network with her peers. She learns a lot, builds a network that helps her benchmark out best practices of the things. This is a no-brainer. She's very frugal. And so I think this is well within our means and well-deserved and most appropriate. Would you like to add anything?
This year, so this is the ILCMA, the Illinois CMA. Last month I talked about the ICMA. I meant to bring them both to you last month, and I forgot to push a button on iCompass, so it's kind of a holdover from last month. But interesting, this year at the ILCMA, I'm actually on the committee to help plan this conference, and I got Bill Balling and Adrian Johnson to speak on succession planning. So I'll be helping moderate that session as well.
Questions for the administrator on this? Then Chair would like a motion to approve the estimated ILCMA and conference expenses for the administrator. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, by Trustee Perkins, and seconded by Thompson. Thank you both. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Hayes?
Yes.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Van Ryn?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. There's agenda item 15, second opportunity for the public to address the board. No one seeks recognition. There is no need for a closed session, so Chair would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Schaller, seconded by Thompson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.